Most people think you need to save for years to make your first $100,000. But in real estate, you can get there much faster, sometimes with a single smart deal and in as little as a couple of years. I'm not talking about lottery tickets or buying crypto with rent money. I'm talking about real, achievable strategies that regular people are using right now to build serious wealth in real estate, fast. And I'm going to walk you through 3 of the most effective ones, step by step. These aren't theories, these are strategies I've followed myself or watched people in my community follow to change their lives financially. So if you've been wondering how to actually hit that first 6-figure milestone in real estate, not in 10 years, but right now, this Chalkboard real estate investing video is for you. Let's start with a strategy that lets you live in your investment while you grow it. Yes, I'm serious. What if you could live somewhere, fix it up gradually, rent part of it out, and walk away 3 years later $100,000 richer? That's exactly what this first strategy is designed to do. It combines house hacking, where you live in part of the property and rent the rest, with a slow motion live and flip, where you improve the property's value over time while you live there. Here's what that actually looks like in practice. Let's say you buy a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-family house for $200,000 using an FHA loan, which only requires 3.5% down. That's $7,000 down, plus another $12,000 in closing costs. So your total upfront investment is $19,000. Now, over the next 1 to 2 years, while you're living in one unit, you invest about $30,000 into renovations. These might include kitchen updates, bathroom refreshes, new flooring, painting, basic improvements that drive value. But also to supercharge the forced appreciation in value even further, let's say you're able to convert parts of the previously unused spaces at the property, like enclosed porches or dens, and I've done this myself numerous times, into 2 additional bedrooms by adding some insulation, sheetrock, a couple of light fixtures, and a couple of closets. Yes, you should look for opportunities for improvements like this while you're shopping for a building and buy strategically with this type of improvement in mind. But this isn't difficult if you know what you're looking for, and no, you don't need an HGTV budget to make it happen, especially if you do some of the work yourself. So the initial upfront cost and the $30,000 in subsequent improvements brings your total investment to $49,000 in this example. Now let's talk about what you're gaining in return. First, forced appreciation from your renovations. If you bought smart and you improve in the right areas, your property could now be worth around $285,000, an $85,000 increase in equity purely from the work you put in. Next, let's add in market appreciation. Real estate generally appreciates over time. A 4% average annual appreciation on your original $200,000 purchase is entirely reasonable, and over 3 years comes out to around $24,972 in additional value. It could absolutely be more than 4%, but let's assume a conservative appreciation rate to be safe. Then there's your housing cost savings. You're living in one of the units and renting the other one out. If your unit could rent for $1,100 per month, that's $13,200 per year or $39,600 saved over the course of 3 years that gets to stay in your pocket. You're also paying down your mortgage during those 3 years. The current FHA mortgage rate is about 6.98%. So we'll assume a 30-year amortization for the loan and financing of the upfront mortgage insurance in the initial balance of the loan. In that case, your monthly principal and interest will come to around $1,300 per month. But here's the kicker. Because the other unit is rented for $1,100 per month, that rent is covering about 84.6% of your monthly mortgage payment. Over 3 years, that tenant rent contributes roughly $11,379 toward your loan principal paydown. And that doesn't account for the fact that after you make the improvements I mentioned, you're likely to rent that same unit that is now a 3-bed rather than a 2-bed for more money. But for the sake of argument, let's assume that the rent from that unit remains at $1,100 per month throughout those 3 years. Now, we also do have to account for some costs of owning the property, like property taxes, insurance, vacancy, and repairs and maintenance. The property taxes will, of course, vary significantly from location to location, but this example, as I'm sure you can tell by the $200,000 purchase price, is not intended to be set in one of the really expensive coastal markets. I'll touch on the location issue in a minute. But in the more middle of the country markets, taxes on a property like this over the course of 3 years could reasonably run approximately $9,500. Insurance would cost somewhere around $3,000. Since this example assumes some hands-on work by the investor, the estimate of the repairs and maintenance cost should be fairly modest. So let's say another $3,000 over the course of 3 years. Finally, let's assume 2 months of vacancy, which will cost another $2,200. So now let's stack all that up. $55,000 increase in value from renovations after subtracting the $30,000 you spend on improvements, $24,972 from market appreciation, $39,600 housing cost savings, $11,379 in mortgage paydown from the tenant's rent, minus $17,900 in expenses that I mentioned. This results in a total benefit of $113,051. But we're not done. As I said in the beginning, we're assuming that now you decide to sell. You've lived in the property for more than 2 years, which means you qualify for the IRS's primary residence capital gains exclusion, but only on your half of the duplex. The other half, which you rented, gets taxed if it appreciated in value. Half the appreciation is around $39,986. And assuming you fall in the 15% long-term capital gains bracket, you'd owe about $5,997 in taxes. Add another $10,000 for closing costs, and that reduces your net profit to $97,054, just under the $100,000 mark. Now, if you used a single-family home for this strategy instead of a duplex and rented out rooms like on Airbnb or to long-term roommates, all of the appreciation would qualify for the tax exclusion, meaning no capital gains taxes owed at all. And in that case, your total profit would be $103,051. But the trade-off is you'd be sharing your space, which isn't everyone's cup of tea. Either way, this strategy proves one powerful point. You can live in your investment and still grow real wealth. And remember, you don't have to sell. You could keep the property and the FHA loan, move out, and rent out your old unit to a tenant. Or just keep living there and let gains keep compounding. This strategy does assume you're able to invest around $49,000 over 1 to 2 years. And no, this won't work exactly the same way in San Francisco or Manhattan. But in most parts of this country, this model still holds. And in higher priced areas, yes, you'll need more upfront capital, but the appreciation is often higher too. There, your upside might be multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars instead of just one. The numbers may change, the concept stays the same. Okay, house hack and live and flip sound great, but what if you don't want to live in your investment? Or what if you already own a home? This next strategy is what I used to build a rental portfolio approaching 200 units over the course of the last 7 years. It's called the BRRRR strategy, which stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. It's how you can stack wealth using the same dollars more than once. Here's what one deal might look like. You buy a distressed 4-unit property for $250,000 using private money, either from a lender you know or a hard money lender. Then you spend $75,000 on renovations and holding costs, bringing your total investment to $325,000. The way I do this is I have the private lender fund the entire thing, the purchase price and the renovation cost. So I don't front any of my own money. But it does take some time and effort to build that kind of trust with your lenders. So in the beginning, you will still need to come with some money of your own or finance the portion not covered by the private lender in another way. After the rehab, the property appraises for $450,000. Now you refinance the private money with a long-term loan. There are banks and lenders who will give you up to 80% of the new appraised value, which in this case is $360,000. From that $360,000, you pay off the original $325,000, you subtract about $10,000 in closing costs, and you're left with $25,000 in cash to you. But that's not all. You also have $90,000 in equity still in the property, and a property that's now stabilized and cash flowing at around $300 to $500 per month. All of that, and you have $0 of your own money left in the deal. You got back all of your capital and then some. This is how you get infinite returns. Now, I'm not going to pretend that this strategy is easy. You're dealing with a lot of moving parts. You have to find private lenders, you need to build trust, You have to negotiate purchase prices with sellers. You have to find and manage contractors. You have to know your numbers. You need banks willing to refinance, and you need to know how to manage tenants or hire someone who can. It's not for your first deal. It takes experience and a reliable network, but it's 100% doable. I've done this strategy over and over again in upstate New York, even in the current market. And I'm telling you, it still works. Just stop relying on the MLS. If you're not seeing deals on the market that make sense, go off market. Direct to seller is where you'll find BRRRR properties today. Now, what if you don't have $49,000 to buy and renovate a house hack, and you're not quite ready for a BRRRR? Then let me introduce you to wholesaling. Wholesaling is where you find off-market properties that are deeply discounted, get them under contract, and then assign that contract to an investor buyer for a fee. You don't actually buy the house. You don't need to fix it up. You're just flipping the paper. Here's how it works. Let's say you talk to a motivated seller. Maybe they inherited a property they don't want, or they're behind on taxes. You offer them $100,000 for the house. They agree. You now have a signed purchase agreement. Then you bring that deal to a cash buyer, someone who flips houses or keeps rentals. If they're willing to pay $115,000 for the property and you assign them your contract for that price, you pocket the difference of $15,000 as an assignment fee. That's one deal. Do 2 or 3 of those, now you're looking at $30,000 to $45,000. Keep going and you could hit $100,000 within a year or less. Now let's be clear, this is a business. You need to first find sellers, usually through cold calling or direct mail, go to appointments and build rapport, make offers that solve real problems, line up serious buyers who can close without hand-holding, use the right contracts that are legally enforceable in your state, and get a solid real estate attorney who understands wholesaling. This is a high-effort, high-people skills strategy. You'll be negotiating, networking, following up, and troubleshooting almost every day. But here's the upside. The barrier to entry is very low. You don't need much capital. You don't need a license in most states, but check your local laws, and you can do your first deal in weeks, not months. In my business, we average $10,000 to $25,000 per assignment, and with a lean team and modest marketing, we do several dozen deals a year. And here's the thing, you don't have to choose. You can wholesale to build up cash, then house hack your first primary, then BRRRR your next rental. I've done all 3, sometimes at the same time. Just make sure you don't turn wholesaling into a forever job. Use it as a launch pad. So there you have it, 3 real strategies that can help you hit over $100,000 in real estate quickly. Not with luck, not with gimmicks, but with smart, focused action. Which of these strategies feels most doable for you? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. And if you want to get a realistic plan for how to retire from your 9-to-5 job with just 5 simple rental properties in 10 years or less, check out this video I recently posted on my channel. Tap or click the screen, and I'll see you there.